My parents said, apologize or be banned from the wedding, so I fled to the Maldives and shut them out. My name is Iris Monroe, and I'm 30 years old. The smell of my mom's expensive vanilla candle filled the living room. It was the kind she only lit for company, which told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't family anymore. I was company, and unwanted company at that. She pointed a finger toward me, her face tight and unfamiliar. Apologize to your sister right now, or you're banned from the wedding. My dad stood beside her, his arms crossed over his chest like a guard. We're done with your drama, Iris. My sister Ava sat back on the plush beige couch, a small, satisfied smirk on her face. She'd already won. She always did. I stood there by the front door, my small suitcase next to me. I had packed it knowing this was a possibility. In my family, peace was always conditional, and I was always the one who had to pay for it. I looked from my mother's angry face to my father's disappointed one, then to my sister's victorious smile. And for the first time, I didn't feel the usual sting of panic or the desperate need to fix it. I just felt tired. Then I guess I'm not coming, I said. My voice was steady. It didn't tremble. That was the moment I stopped chasing validation from people who only loved me when I was silent and small. Before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My younger sister, Ava, was born to shine. At least that's what my parents always said. She was 4 years younger than me, but in our family's eyes, she was the main event. I was the responsible opening act nobody really paid attention to. The one who made sure the lights were on and the doors were open. Ava was the star who danced on the stage I'd helped set. Her wedding was the biggest show of all. It was going to be held in a grand hotel ballroom downtown, the kind with massive crystal chandeliers and ceilings so high they made you feel insignificant. She had 250 guests on her list, a live orchestra for the ceremony, and a dessert table that I was pretty sure cost more than my car. My parents were paying for all of it, every last cent. I'm 30. I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Seattle that I pay for myself. I work as a software consultant, a job I got through my own hard work, my own student loans, and my own long nights studying. I build a quiet, simple life for myself. I pay my bills on time. I have a cat named Leo. I am, for all intents and purposes, a successful adult. Ava was 26. She still lived at home in the bedroom my parents had redecorated for her after she graduated from college. Mom still did her laundry sometimes and called her our sweet baby. Her job as a social media coordinator for a local boutique was something she did for fun money. Her real job, it seemed, was being my parents' prized possession. The unfairness of it all wasn't a new feeling. It was a dull, constant ache I'd lived with my whole life. It was a story told in 1,000 small moments. I remember my 10th birthday. I had asked for a specific telescope I'd seen in a catalog. I had circled it, left hints, and talked about the stars for months. On my birthday morning, I was handed a neatly wrapped box. Inside was a set of encyclopedias. To help with your schoolwork, my dad said, patting my head. It's practical. 2 months later, for Ava's 6th birthday, she pointed at a giant frilly dollhouse in a toy store. It was ridiculously expensive. I watched my parents exchange a look, a small smile, and they bought it for her without a second thought. I spent my birthday night looking up at the real stars through my window, while Ava's dolls had a 3-story mansion. This pattern repeated itself endlessly. When I was 16, I worked 40-hour weeks all summer at a greasy diner, coming home with sore feet and the smell of fried onions clinging to my clothes. I saved every single dollar. After 3 months of hard labor, I bought my first car, a 15-year-old Honda Civic that rattled when it went over 60. I was so proud of that car. It was my freedom. My parents' reaction? Good, my dad said. Now you can drive your sister to her ballet classes. For Ava's 16th birthday, she woke up to a brand new white convertible in the driveway, a giant red bow stuck to the windshield. They threw a massive party for her in the backyard. My achievement was a responsibility. Hers was a celebration. College was the starkest difference. I sat alone at the kitchen table for nights on end, navigating the complicated maze of financial aid and student loan applications. My parents offered no help. You're smart. You'll figure it out, was all my mom said. I worked 2 part-time jobs all through college, one in the library and one waiting tables, just to cover my books and food. I lived on instant noodles and cheap coffee. When I graduated, I had my degree, my pride, and nearly $60,000 in debt. Ava went to a private arts college 3 states away, all expenses paid. My parents co-signed for her stylish off-campus apartment. They sent her care packages filled with gourmet snacks and new clothes every month. When she graduated, her slate was clean. Her future was a wide-open field, while mine felt like a mountain I had to climb. weighed down by a backpack full of rocks. The wedding just magnified this lifelong dynamic. It put it on a giant screen for everyone to see. One evening, a few months before the wedding date, I went to their house for our strained weekly dinner. Mom was on her iPad, her face glowing in the dim light of the living room. "Look at this, Iris," she said, showing me the screen. It was a picture of a towering 7-tier wedding cake, adorned with what looked like real handcrafted sugar flowers. "Isn't it a work of art? The baker says it's his signature design. It's $4,000. I felt my stomach clench. $4,000. For a cake. That was more than 3 months of my student loan payments. I tried to keep my voice even. "Mom, that's a lot for a cake. Are you sure you guys are okay? This wedding seems like it's getting incredibly expensive." She waved her hand dismissively, not taking her eyes off the screen. "Oh, it's fine. It's for Ava. We want her to have the best. It's a once-in-a-lifetime day." "I know," I said, the words feeling thin in my mouth. I remember when I moved into my first apartment after college. The security deposit was $1,000 and I didn't have it. I asked if you could help, and you said I needed to learn to stand on my own 2 feet. It just feels different." Finally, she looked up, and her expression wasn't soft or understanding. It was irritated, as if I'd brought up a bill that was past due. "Iris, why do you always have to do this? Why do you always have to compare? It's not the same thing at all. Ava needs more help. She's not like you. She's more sensitive." There it was. The line they always used to justify everything. "She's not like you." It was supposed to be a compliment, a testament to the strength they had forced upon me. But it wasn't. It was a cage. My independence was their excuse to be absent. My resilience was their permission to be negligent. I was the strong one, so I didn't need a soft place to land. I was the responsible one, so I didn't need a safety net. I was the quiet one, so I didn't need to be listened to. Ava wasn't like me because they had never required her to be. She had never known the quiet panic of a looming bill. She had never had to choose between buying groceries and putting gas in her car. She had never felt the bone-deep loneliness of solving her own problems because there was no one else to turn to. She was a beautiful, delicate plant in a carefully tended greenhouse, while I was a weed that had learned to grow in the cracks of the sidewalk. I looked at my mom as she went back to her iPad, completely absorbed in the fantasy of a perfect wedding for her perfect daughter. In that world, there was no room for my history, my struggles, or my feelings. I was just a ghost in the background of their happy family portrait, a convenient shadow that made their golden girl shine that much brighter. I sat there in silence, the ache in my chest familiar and heavy, and for the first time, I started to wonder what would happen if the shadow just walked away. The engagement dinner was my first real test in the long, grueling marathon that was Ava's wedding season. It was held at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, the kind with white tablecloths so crisp they could cut you and waiters who called you madam. My parents had booked a private room that opened onto a small terrace. The air was filled with the sounds of clinking glasses, sophisticated laughter, and a string quartet playing softly in the corner. For 2 weeks leading up to it, I was consumed with anxiety about what to wear. It sounds trivial, but in my family it was everything. Clothing was a language. It was used to signal your status, your mood, your allegiance. If I dressed down, I wasn't respecting the occasion. If I dressed up too much, I was trying to steal the spotlight. It was a game I could never win. After agonizing over it, I chose a simple, elegant sheath dress in a deep forest green. It was modest, well-made, and made me feel quietly confident. I paired it with simple black heels and a small clutch. Understated, safe. That was the goal. I arrived a few minutes early, hoping to find a friendly face, maybe a cousin or an aunt, to anchor myself to before the main event began. I did manage to have a brief, pleasant conversation with my Uncle Mark about a new project at his firm. For a few minutes, I felt like a normal person, an adult professional making small talk. It was a fragile, fleeting feeling of peace. Then Ava made her entrance with her fiancé, David, and my parents trailing behind her like a royal court. The room went quiet and then erupted into applause. Ava was wearing a shimmering, beaded white dress that hugged her body perfectly. It was less of an engagement dress and more of a prelude to a wedding gown. She looked stunning, and she knew it. She soaked in the attention, turning this way and that, her smile wide and dazzling. I waited for a moment when she wasn't surrounded and walked over to congratulate her. "Ava, you look beautiful," I said, my voice genuine. "The place is amazing." She turned to me, and her dazzling smile tightened. Her eyes did a slow, deliberate scan of my body, from my heels up to my face. The smile turned into a smirk. She let out a high, tinkling laugh that was sharp enough to cut glass, and it drew the attention of everyone nearby. "Wow, Iris," she said, her voice carrying across the quiet room. "A green dress. Trying to steal attention again? I guess someone had to be the Wicked Witch tonight." The air was sucked out of my lungs. My polite smile froze on my face. The blood rushed to my cheeks, hot and shameful. I could feel a dozen pairs of eyes on me. I opened my mouth to say something, anything. "What? No, it's just a dress." But no words came out. My mother, who was standing right beside her, saw the whole thing. This was her moment to be a mother to both her daughters. She could have said, "Ava, that's not a kind thing to say. Your sister looks lovely." She could have diffused the situation with a simple act of fairness. Instead, she placed a protective hand on Ava's arm and turned to me, her face a mask of disappointment, as if I were the one who had misbehaved. "You know, honey," she said, her voice dripping with that familiar, condescending sweetness. "You could have picked something a little more neutral, a black or a navy. Green is such a loud color. We all need to remember that tonight is Ava's night." Ava's friends, a clique of women who all looked and dressed exactly like her, let out a few quiet snickers. David, her fiancé, just shook his head with a condescending smile as if to say, "What can you do with sisters?" The heat in my face intensified until I felt like I was on fire. I was no longer a 30-year-old woman. I was a clumsy, awkward teenager being publicly shamed for breaking a rule I didn't even know existed. The rest of the dinner was a blur of quiet agony. I was seated at the far end of the long rectangular table, a deliberate placement that screamed afterthought. I was next to a cousin of David's I'd never met who spent the entire meal texting under the table. People talked over me and around me. When my Uncle Mark tried to bring me into a conversation about the Seattle tech scene, my own father cut him off to tell a long, boring story about a golf game he'd had last week. It was a masterful, collective effort of making me disappear. Later, during the toasts, the humiliation was layered on even thicker. Ava's maid of honor, a woman named Chloe, stood up and gave a gushing speech. "Ava has always been the brightest light in every room," she said. "She's kind, generous, and has a way of making everyone feel special." Then she looked over at me, a sly grin on her face. "And we have to thank her sister Iris for always being so serious. You really taught us all how to appreciate Ava's fun-loving spirit." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter went through the room. It was a joke, but it was a joke with a knife, and the blade was pointed directly at me. I was the dark cloud that made their sunshine seem brighter. I excused myself to go to the restroom, needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere. The hallway leading to the back of the restaurant was quiet and dimly lit. As I passed a small alcove, I heard Ava's voice, low and conspiratorial. She was tucked away with David, hidden from the main room. "She just can't stand that it's not about her for once," Ava was saying, her voice laced with a practiced, sorrowful tone. "She's been like this my whole life. Always so jealous because I was the pretty one, and she was just the smart one." David made a soothing noise. "Don't let her ruin this for you, babe. She's just background noise. Tonight is about us." Background noise. The words hit me harder than the public insults. It wasn't just that they saw me as a problem. It was that they didn't really see me at all. I was a prop, a footnote in their story, the reliable villain who made their heroine look more virtuous. I stumbled into the women's restroom and locked the door, leaning against it as I tried to breathe. I stared at my reflection in the ornate mirror. I saw the forest green dress that was too bold. I saw the polite, strained smile I had been wearing all night. And I saw the deep, profound hurt in my eyes. A hurt that no one in my family would ever acknowledge, because acknowledging it would mean they had to admit they were the ones who had inflicted it. I splashed cold water on my burning face, took a deep, shaky breath, and forced myself to walk back out there. I had to sit through another hour of dessert and coffee. A silent, smiling ghost, playing the part they had written for me. A family is supposed to be a circle of strength and love, a place you can always return to, but mine felt more like a fortress, with my parents and Ava inside and me on the outside, looking in through a barred window. The weeks following the engagement dinner were a masterclass in quiet, deliberate exclusion. It wasn't one big, dramatic event. It was a series of small, calculated cuts, each one designed to sever me from them completely. The first, and most public, was the bridesmaid announcement. I knew it was coming, and a small, naive part of me still held out a sliver of hope. I was her only sister, after all. Despite everything, I thought some traditions were unbreakable. I was wrong. I found out on a Tuesday night. I was on my couch, scrolling mindlessly through Instagram after a draining day at work, my cat Leo purring on my lap. And then there it was, a professionally shot photo of Ava, surrounded by 5 of her friends. They were all wearing matching pink silk robes, holding champagne flutes, and laughing with exaggerated glee. The caption read, "I found my mister, but I still need my sisters. Couldn't say I do without my crew. Schorspruter mit deze meintje Eva gets hitched." My heart did a painful little plummet into my stomach. I zoomed in on the photo, studying their faces, the perfect lighting, the personalized gift boxes sitting on the table in front of them. It was a picture of pure joy and female friendship, and I was nowhere in it. I scrolled through the comments. They were flooded with congratulations and heart emojis. A few distant relatives had commented, "So beautiful. But where's Iris?" Their comments went unanswered. I felt a cold, hollow feeling spread through my chest. It wasn't just that I wasn't chosen. It was that my absence wasn't even worth an explanation. I waited a day, then two, thinking someone would call. No one did. Finally, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I called my mom. I tried to sound casual, breezy, as if it didn't matter. It was a performance I had perfected over the years. "Hey, Mom, I saw the bridesmaid photos on Instagram. It looked like a really beautiful brunch," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Oh, it was wonderful," she chirped, her voice bright and oblivious. Ava was so happy. "Chloe is planning the most amazing bachelorette party in Miami." There was a beat of silence. I had to force the next words out. "I was just wondering. I guess I was a little surprised I wasn't asked to be a bridesmaid." Her sigh came through the phone, heavy and theatrical. It was the sigh of someone who was being deeply inconvenienced. "Oh, Iris, please don't make this a thing. We know how incredibly busy you are with your important job and your life out there. You wouldn't have time for all the dress fittings and the planning and the parties. Honestly, we were trying to do you a favor. You wouldn't enjoy all that fuss." It was the perfect, unassailable excuse. It painted them as thoughtful and considerate, and me as a cold, career-obsessed woman who was above such frivolous things. But we both knew it was a lie. "I would have made time, Mom," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "It would have been important to me." "Well, it's too late now," she said briskly. "The dresses have already been ordered." And then, as if she couldn't help herself, she added, "Besides, Ava felt that you'd probably just criticize everything. The color, the style. You can be very judgmental. She needs people around her who are going to be 100% positive and supportive." I didn't have a response to that. Any attempt to defend myself would just be used as further proof of my negative and judgmental nature. I was trapped. The small cuts kept coming. I offered to help my mom with addressing the hundreds of wedding invitations. "Oh no, honey, don't you worry about it," she said. "Ava's friends are coming over for a Prosecco and a dressing party. It'll be fun for them." I was not invited. I saw a picture of a cake tasting session on Ava's fiancé's social media. Ava, my parents, and his parents, all laughing as they sampled different flavors. I hadn't even known it was happening. I was being systematically erased from every pre-wedding ritual, every happy memory being created. The final, deepest cut came via a text message. It was a Thursday evening. I had just gotten home and was changing out of my work clothes. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was from my mother. It was long, so I had to open it to read the whole thing. "Hi, Iris. Dad, Ava, and I have been talking, and we've decided it's best if you skip the rehearsal dinner. A lot of David's family will be there meeting everyone for the first time, and we just need the vibe to be completely positive and celebratory. There's been too much tension lately, and it's making Ava stressed. We think it's better to just avoid any potential awkwardness. We'll see you at the ceremony." I read the message once, then twice. Then a third time, the words blurring in front of my eyes. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a command, a banishment. They were uninviting me from my own sister's wedding rehearsal dinner because my very presence, was the potential awkwardness. I was the negative vibe. I was the storm cloud they were trying to steer clear of. For the first time in my 30 years, I didn't feel the urge to fight back. I didn't feel the need to call and plead my case. The fight had just gone out of me. It was like a string inside me that had been pulled taut for my entire life had finally snapped. There was no more tension. There was just a quiet, empty space. I dropped my phone onto the bed. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I walked into the living room and looked out the window at the city lights. I felt strangely disconnected, as if I were watching a movie about someone else's life. I thought about all the years I had tried so hard. All the years I had swallowed my feelings, minimized my needs, and accepted the crumbs of affection they threw my way. For what? To end up here, deemed too toxic to even attend a family dinner. In that quiet moment, something inside me didn't just crack. It turned to dust. The part of me that had been desperately trying to earn a place in my own family finally gave up. It was a silent, devastating surrender. And in the wreckage, a new feeling began to emerge. A cold, quiet, and terrifying sense of freedom. A week after the text message that officially barred me from the rehearsal dinner, my mother called. Her voice on the phone was a tool she wielded with expert precision. This time, it was set to a tone of cloying sweetness, a syrupy sound that always signaled she was about to ask for something impossible. "Hi, honey," she began, the word honey sounding alien and false. "Your father and I were thinking, it's been a tense few weeks. Why don't you come over for dinner on Sunday? Just the four of us. We need to clear the air and make things right before the wedding. Make things right." The phrase echoed in the empty space inside me. In my family's dictionary, that phrase had a very specific definition. It did not mean mutual understanding or apology. It meant that a problem, and I was always the problem, needed to be neutralized. It meant I would be put on trial, found guilty, and expected to beg for forgiveness to restore the family's fragile peace. It was a summons, not an invitation. A trap, not a reconciliation. But I knew I had to go. I had to walk into the trap with my eyes open. I had to see the story through to its inevitable ugly end. The drive to their house was surreal. I felt strangely calm, like a passenger in my own body. I drove past the park where my dad had taught me to ride a bike, and the library where my mom had first read me a story. These memories felt like they belonged to a different person, a little girl who hadn't yet learned the rules of her family. The rule that said there was only enough love for one daughter, and I wasn't her. When I arrived, the scene was exactly as I had pictured it. It was a stage, and every prop was in its place. The expensive vanilla candle, the one reserved for company, was burning on the coffee table, its scent thick and cloying. My dad stood by the fireplace, his arms crossed, his posture rigid and judgmental, and sitting on the couch, illuminated by a lamp like an actress in a spotlight, was Ava. She was holding a tissue, and her shoulders were trembling slightly. It was a masterful performance of fragile victimhood. My mom closed the door behind me, the soft click sealing me inside the courtroom. "Iris, thank you for coming," she said, her voice stripped of its earlier sweetness. Now it was all business. I hadn't even taken my coat off before the trial began. Ava looked up, her eyes wide and wet with unshed tears. "I just don't understand why you've been so cruel to me," she whimpered, her voice cracking perfectly. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at our parents, her audience. "This is supposed to be the happiest time of my life, and you've done nothing but try to ruin it. You were weird at the engagement party. You've been moping around for weeks, and now everyone is asking me why my own sister isn't a bridesmaid. All I wanted was a peaceful wedding." I stood there, frozen in the entryway, the sheer audacity of her words washing over me. Cruel? I had been systematically insulted, excluded, and uninvited. My only crime was failing to disappear gracefully enough. I opened my mouth to defend myself, to list the facts, to present my evidence. Cruel? How have I been cruel? By wearing a green dress? By not being invited to things? But I never got the chance. My mother stepped forward, cutting me off. Her voice was as cold and hard as stone. "Your attitude, Iris, that's the problem. That dress you wore to the engagement dinner was a deliberate attempt to upstage your sister." "It was selfish," my dad chimed in, his voice a low growl of disappointment. "And you've been sulking ever since, making everyone walk on eggshells. You have this dark cloud over you, and you're bringing it into every room you enter. You are embarrassing this family." Ava added another charge to the list, dabbing her eye with the tissue. "You didn't even post a proper congratulations on my engagement photos." All my friends asked why my sister didn't seem happy for me. It was humiliating. They were coming at me from all sides, a firing squad of accusations. Every one of their actions was twisted and laid at my feet as my fault. I was criticized for the dress they insulted. I was sulking because they excluded me. I was a dark cloud because they had created the storm. It was gaslighting so profound it was almost brilliant. For a terrifying second, I felt my resolve waver. A tiny voice in my head whispered, "Are they right? Am I the problem? Am I really this awful, jealous person?" But then I looked at them. Really looked at them. I saw the cold, unwavering determination in my mother's eyes. I saw the weary, stubborn refusal to understand in my father's face. And beneath Ava's fake tears, I saw a flicker of something else. A smug, triumphant satisfaction. She was winning. She was getting exactly what she wanted. And in that moment, the confusion vanished. The self-doubt evaporated. All that was left was a quiet, unshakable clarity. I saw them not as my family, but as a system. A machine designed for one purpose, to protect and elevate Ava, no matter the cost. And I was the part of the machine that was being ground down to fuel the rest. They didn't want to make things right. They wanted me to surrender. to admit that their reality was the only reality. My mother delivered the final verdict. You owe your sister a sincere apology, Iris, for everything. For your behavior, your attitude, your jealousy. You will apologize to her right now. Otherwise, you are banned from the wedding. It's that simple. I looked from my mother's hard face to my father's stony one, and then to my sister, who was now watching me with an expectant look. This was the moment. The moment I was supposed to break. The moment I was supposed to cry and say, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Instead, I felt a profound sense of calm settle over me. The fight was over because I was no longer fighting. I was letting go. I bent down slowly and picked up my purse from the floor. I straightened up and looked directly at Ava. You're right, I said, and my voice was so steady it surprised even me. You do deserve a perfect day. A small, relieved smile touched my mother's lips. She thought she had won. I continued, my gaze still locked on my sister. You can have your perfect wedding, and you can have this perfect family. I gestured around the room at the three of them. I'm done. I'm done playing the problem so you can all be the heroes. I turned and walked to the door. I didn't run. I didn't storm out. I walked with a strange, newfound lightness. I opened the door, stepped out into the cool evening air, and pulled it shut behind me. The soft click of the latch echoed in the sudden silence. It was the quietest, most powerful sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of my cage opening. It was the sound of me, finally, walking free. What they didn't know, as I closed that door behind me, was that this wasn't an ending. It was an activation. This escape wasn't an impulsive, emotional reaction to their ultimatum. It was the pulling of a trigger on a plan I had been quietly building for over a year. The confrontation wasn't the cause. It was simply the final piece of permission I needed to give myself. The idea had started as a whisper, a fantasy I'd entertain on bad days. After a particularly cutting remark from Ava or a dismissive comment from my mom, I'd find myself scrolling through travel websites, looking at pictures of places so remote and peaceful, they seemed to exist on another planet. White sand beaches, huts standing on stilts over impossibly blue water, skies with no clouds. At first, it was just a coping mechanism, a digital daydream. But then, about a year ago, after my dad told me I was financially irresponsible for taking a weekend trip to Portland while they were funding Ava's third European vacation, something inside me hardened. The daydream began to take shape. It became a goal. A secret project I called the Freedom Fund. Every bonus I got from work, every dollar I earned from a freelance coding project I took on in my spare time, went into a separate high-yield savings account. I cut my own expenses, brewing coffee at home instead of buying it, learning to cook instead of ordering takeout. I watched that number grow with a quiet, fierce satisfaction. $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. It wasn't just money. It was a potential future. It was a tangible representation of my own effort, my own value, completely separate from my family. When it hit $25,000, I knew I was ready. I had built my own safety net, one they couldn't see and therefore couldn't control. The drive home from their house was strangely peaceful. The rage and hurt that usually churned in my stomach after a family encounter were gone, replaced by a cold, clear sense of purpose. I didn't cry. I didn't even turn on the radio. I just drove through the dark city streets, my hands steady on the wheel. When I got back to my apartment, I didn't sit down. I didn't pour a glass of wine. I walked straight to my laptop, opened it, and got to work. The website was already bookmarked. A specific resort in the Maldives I had looked at 100 times. An overwater villa with a private deck and a staircase leading directly into the Indian Ocean. I looked at the calendar. Ava's wedding was in 5 days. I booked a 2-week stay, starting the very next day. I entered my credit card information without a single tremor of hesitation. The confirmation page loaded. The bright green check mark a symbol of my liberation. Then I did a quick calculation. The bridesmaid dress I would have been forced to buy, the professionally styled hair and makeup, the shoes, the ridiculously expensive gift from the registry, my share of the bachelorette party I wasn't even invited to. It all added up. I estimated I would have been pressured into spending roughly $7,000 to participate in my own humiliation. The price of my 2-week stay in paradise, flight included, was almost exactly that amount. I wasn't running away. I was reinvesting in myself. I was taking the money I would have spent performing a role for them and using it to finally be free. With the trip booked, I moved on to the next phase. The quiet severing of ties. I opened another tab on my browser and logged into our family's cell phone plan. It was under my name. I had set it up years ago when I got my first corporate job with good credit because my parents was a mess. They were supposed to pay me their share every month, but they were almost always a little short. Ava never paid at all. For 3 years, I had been footing the bill for all 4 of us. I looked at the account, at the 3 lines attached to mine. With 3 clicks, I removed my parents and Ava from the plan. An email was automatically sent to them. Iris Monroe has made changes to your account. Your line will be deactivated in 24 hours. Next, the cloud storage. I paid for the 2 terabyte family plan where my mom stored thousands upon thousands of photos. Every picture of Ava from birth to her engagement shoot. My own photos were on a separate hard drive. I downgraded the plan to the basic individual one. Another automated email would inform her that her storage was full and her files would be deleted if she didn't upgrade. Then, the streaming services. The Netflix, the Hulu, the HBO Max. All under my name, all paid for by my credit card. I logged into each one and clicked Log Out of All Devices. I changed the passwords. The passwords had previously been simple things like Monroe Family or Ava's the Best. I changed them to long, complicated strings of random letters and numbers that only I would know. Each click was methodical, clean, and strangely satisfying. It wasn't done in anger. It was done with the detached precision of a surgeon removing a diseased part of a patient. These were the invisible strings that kept me tied to them, the small ways they took while telling me I was the one who was difficult. 3 years of unnoticed, unthanked generosity, all of it, gone in less than 5 minutes. Finally, I picked up my phone. I saw a dozen missed calls from my mom and a string of angry texts. What is this email about the phone plan? Call me right now, Iris. This is not funny. I ignored them. I opened a new message, a group text to my mom, my dad, and Ava. My fingers were steady as I typed. There was so much I could have said, years of pain I could have poured out, but I knew it would be pointless. They didn't have the capacity to hear it. So I kept it simple. I kept it true. I won't apologize for existing. Enjoy the wedding. I hit send. Then I blocked their numbers. All 3 of them. I powered down my phone, packed my suitcase with sundresses and bathing suits, and set my alarm for 4 a.m. I was going to the airport to catch the sunrise. The flight was a 20-hour journey across the world, a slow, suspended transition from one reality to another. With every hour that passed, I felt the tension seep out of my shoulders, the knot in my stomach unwind. I didn't watch movies or listen to music. I just stared out the window at the endless expanse of clouds, feeling the physical distance between me and my family grow with every mile. It was a decompression chamber for my soul. When I finally arrived in the Maldives, it was more beautiful than any picture. The air was warm and humid, smelling of salt and flowers. The water wasn't just blue. It was 100 different shades of turquoise, sapphire, and aquamarine, so clear you could see the brightly colored fish swimming near the docks. My villa was at the end of a long wooden pier, a private little world of thatched roofs and pristine white linen. I dropped my bags, slid open the glass door to my private deck, and stepped out into the sunshine. There was no noise, no traffic, no shouting, no demands, just the gentle, rhythmic sound of the waves lapping against the stilts below me. I took a deep, shuddering breath, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly, completely at peace. For the first 4 days, I did absolutely nothing. I woke up when the sun woke me. I ate fresh fruit and pastries on my deck. I swam in the warm, crystalline water, and I read books in a hammock. I left my phone in a drawer, turned off. It was a digital detox, a family detox, a life detox. I felt my mind clear and my spirit settle. The constant background noise of anxiety I had lived with for 30 years faded away until there was only silence. On the 5th day, I knew it was Saturday. It was Ava's wedding day. Back in Seattle, it would be late Friday night. The rehearsal dinner I was banned from would be over. The wedding day preparations would be in full swing. I felt a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching a movie I had already seen. I knew all the lines, all the scenes, all the drama that was about to unfold. But for the first time, I wasn't in it. I was in the audience, thousands of miles away. I felt no sadness, no regret, no jealousy. I just felt free. That afternoon, I was lying on a lounge chair on my deck, a glass of iced tea sweating beside me. The sun was warm on my skin, the water was sparkling, and I felt a moment of pure, unadulterated happiness. It was a feeling so clean and simple it brought tears to my eyes. I picked up my phone, turned it on for the first time in days, and took a picture. It wasn't a selfie. It was just a picture of my bare feet propped up on the wooden railing, the brilliant turquoise ocean stretching out in front of them. It was a picture of my perspective, a picture of my peace. I thought for a moment about what to write. I could have written something angry or dramatic, but that would have been playing their game. My revenge wasn't loud. It was quiet. It wasn't about shouting. It was about living, So I uploaded the photo to my Instagram, a platform I rarely used, and wrote a simple caption, finally choosing peace over performance. Then I put my phone down, face down on the table beside me, and took a sip of my tea. I didn't expect much. Maybe a few likes from old college friends. I had no idea I had just lit a fuse. An hour later, I picked up my phone again out of idle curiosity. It had exploded. Dozens of notifications. My screen was a chaotic mess of comments and messages. The first comment I saw was from my cousin Sarah, my mom's sister's daughter. Wow, looks amazing. Wait, isn't the wedding today? And with that one innocent question, the entire facade of my family came crashing down. Beneath Sarah's comment was a cascade of confusion. An aunt. What? I thought you were sick with the flu. Your mom told me you couldn't make it. An old family friend. Iris, I didn't know you were traveling. We were all so sad you weren't here. Another cousin. Is this a joke? Why aren't you at Ava's wedding? Then came the private messages, screenshots of which were being forwarded to me by Sarah, who was clearly enjoying the drama. The family group chat, the one I had been removed from, was in a full-blown meltdown. Did anyone know Iris was in the Maldives? I'm at the wedding venue now. Your mother is telling people you have a terrible stomach virus. What is going on? Why would she post this on Ava's wedding day? That's so spiteful. Spiteful? Maybe she had a reason. I always thought they treated her badly. My parents' carefully constructed story, the one where I was the sick, absent daughter who was too ill to attend, was unraveling in real time. In public, on the one day they wanted everything to be perfect. I could picture it so clearly. The guests arriving at the Grand Hotel, whispering in the lobby, people looking at their phones, then looking over at my parents with new, questioning eyes. The perfect, happy family portrait was cracking right down the middle, and everyone was there to see it. The best part was I hadn't done anything. I hadn't yelled or argued or exposed them. I had simply told my own truth, quietly and peacefully. I hadn't created the drama. I had simply stopped absorbing it. Their lies were so fragile that one simple, honest picture was enough to shatter them completely. I watched the notifications continue to pour in for another 10 minutes. Then I did something the old Iris never would have been able to do. I put my phone back in the drawer. I turned it off. I walked down the little staircase from my deck and slipped into the warm, silent water of the Indian Ocean. As I floated on my back, looking up at the perfect cloudless sky, I felt the last of the weight lift off my chest. Their perfect day had become the day everyone learned the truth, and my quietest moment had become my loudest victory. I returned to Seattle 2 weeks later. The person who got off the plane was not the same one who had boarded it. The old Iris walked with her shoulders hunched, as if bracing for a blow. This new version of me walked tall. My skin was tan, my hair was lightened by the sun, and there was a deep, settled calm in my eyes that hadn't been there before. My apartment, once a place I hid in, now felt like a true sanctuary, a space that was entirely my own. The quiet no longer felt like loneliness. It felt like peace. I had known they would be waiting for me. It was their style. They didn't do appointments or polite requests. They did ambushes. As the taxi pulled up to my building, I saw their car parked across the street. And there they were, standing on the sidewalk in front of my door like a two-person picket line. My father had his arms crossed, his face a thundercloud. My mother was wringing her hands, her expression a mixture of fury and theatrical distress. For a split second, a ghost of the old fear flickered inside me. The instinct to apologize, to smooth things over, to make it all go away. But then I remembered the feeling of floating in that turquoise water, the feeling of absolute, untroubled peace. That feeling was my new anchor. I paid the taxi driver, pulled my suitcase from the trunk, and walked toward them with a steady, unhurried pace. My dad started before I was even within 10 feet of him. His voice was a low bark, the one he used when he was trying to intimidate. Do you have any idea what you've done? I stopped in front of them, placing my suitcase on the ground. I didn't answer him. I just looked at him, my expression calm and neutral. My mother's voice rose, cracking with practiced anguish. You humiliated us. You humiliated your sister on her wedding day. Our friends, our family, everyone was asking questions. You turned the whole day into a circus. All because you had to have a tantrum and get attention. I listened to the accusations, the same old words they had always used. Humiliated, tantrum, attention, but this time the words had no power. They were just sounds, bouncing off the new armor I had built around myself. I calmly dug in my purse for my keys. You banned me from the wedding, I said, my voice even and clear. It didn't waver. I just took a vacation. It was the simple, undeniable truth, and it completely disarmed them. They were prepared for a fight, for tears, for a screaming match. They were not prepared for calm, logical facts. They just stared at me, momentarily speechless. "You did it to be spiteful," my father finally sputtered. "Posting that picture, showing off, making us look like fools." "The picture was of my feet," I said, unlocking the main door to my building. I held it open, and it said I was choosing peace. "If you found that humiliating, that's not really about me, is it?" I walked into the lobby, and to my surprise, they followed me, their footsteps echoing mine. Their anger was giving way to a desperate, sputtering confusion. They were used to being in control, and for the first time, they weren't. "This family is broken because of you," my mother cried as I unlocked my apartment door. I pushed the door open, turned, and faced them in the hallway. I leaned against the doorframe. "The family was broken a long time ago," I said, my voice still quiet. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. This was the moment I had been preparing for. On the long flight home, I had gone through my phone and my old emails. I had taken screenshots. I had organized years of their casual cruelty into a neat little folder. It was my own personal file of evidence. I held up my phone. "You want to talk about humiliation?" I asked. I opened the first screenshot. It was from the family group chat, a month before the wedding. My mom had sent a picture of Ava in her wedding dress. The caption read, "My gorgeous girl, a true princess." My Aunt Carol had replied, "Stunning. Iris must be so proud." My mother's response, for the whole family to see, was, "Well, Iris has her career, so that's nice for her." The implication was clear. Ava has beauty. Iris has a consolation prize. I swiped to the next one. A series of texts from Ava over the past year. "Hey, my credit card is maxed out. Can you Venmo me $200 for concert tickets? OMG, I need that new jacket. Can you lend me some cash till next week? Dad said you got a bonus. You should totally help me pay for my car repairs." There were over a dozen of them, a running tally of her entitlement. I swiped again. "You want to talk about being ungrateful?" I showed them the payment records for the phone plan, the streaming services, the cloud storage. Neat columns of numbers showing hundreds of dollars leaving my account every single month for 3 straight years, without a single word of thanks. "I was paying for the phone you used to call me selfish," I said to my dad. "I was paying for the cloud storage where you saved 10,000 pictures of Ava and maybe 12 of me. I was paying for the Netflix you watched while you complained that I wasn't doing enough for this family." I kept swiping. A screenshot of the text banning me from the rehearsal dinner. A screenshot of Chloe's joke about me at the engagement party. A screenshot of a comment my own mother had made on Facebook under a picture of me from my college graduation. "Our smart one. Hopefully all that studying pays off someday." A backhanded comment disguised as a compliment. I watched their faces as I presented the evidence. The anger drained away, replaced by a pasty, slack-jawed shock. They had never seen their own behavior laid out like this, collected and presented as cold, hard data. Their narrative, the one where they were the long-suffering parents and I was the difficult, ungrateful daughter, was being systematically dismantled right in front of their eyes. They looked stunned, small, cornered by a truth they could no longer deny. My mother made one last, desperate attempt to regain control. Her voice was just a whisper. You're ungrateful." I looked at her, at this woman who had given me life but had never truly seen me. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt a deep, sad pity. "No," I said, my voice soft but firm. I put my phone back in my pocket. "I'm awake." And with that, I stepped back into my apartment and closed the door, leaving them standing alone in the hallway with the wreckage of their own lies. The weeks after I closed the door on my parents were the quietest of my life. The silence was absolute. No angry phone calls, no manipulative texts, no unexpected ambushes. It was as if a constant, high-pitched ringing in my ears that I had lived with my entire life had suddenly stopped. At first, the silence was unnerving. I kept checking my phone, expecting it to buzz with a new crisis. But it remained quiet. Slowly, I began to relax into the peace. I started to rebuild my life, not around the gaping hole my family had left, but on the solid new ground I was clearing for myself. I started small. I reconnected with old friends from college I had drifted away from, too consumed by my family's drama to be a good friend. We got coffee, went for hikes, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. I realized how much I had missed having relationships that were reciprocal, easy, and unconditional. I joined a yoga studio near my apartment. I wasn't very good at it, but I loved the feeling of being in a room full of people who were all focused on their own breath, their own balance, their own little patch of mat. For an hour, 3 times a week, I was responsible for no one's happiness but my own. I poured my extra energy into my work, taking on a challenging new project that both terrified and excited me. I discovered that without the constant emotional drain of my family, I had so much more to give to my career, to my friendships, to myself. My apartment transformed. I bought new plants, a colorful rug, and art for the walls. I was creating a space that was a reflection of me, not a refuge from them. I was learning to be the main character in my own life, not just a supporting role in theirs. About a month after my return, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My heart gave a little jolt, but I opened it. It was from Ava. "I'm sorry," it read. "I know I haven't been a good sister. I was selfish, and I let Mom and Dad make me think it was all okay. I shouldn't have treated you like that. The wedding was a disaster, and it's my fault." I stared at the message for a long time. It was the first real apology I had ever received from her. There were no excuses, no justifications, just a simple admission of fault. A year ago, I would have replied instantly, my heart flooding with relief. I would have said, "It's okay, I forgive you, let's just move on." I would have accepted any crumb of remorse just to feel connected again. But the new me was different. I read the text, acknowledged the words, and then I put my phone down. I went to my yoga class. I went out for dinner with a friend. I came home and read a book. I let her words sit in the air for 2 full days. My healing was on my own schedule now, not theirs. It needed time and quiet reflection, not a rushed performative reunion. When I finally replied, my message was simple. "Thank you for the apology. I appreciate it." I didn't say, "I forgive you." I didn't say, "Let's talk." I just acknowledged her words. It was an acknowledgement, not an invitation. The door was still closed. A week after that, I got an email from my dad. It was short and awkward. "Your mother and I would like to talk to you. Maybe we could get coffee sometime." This time, I was the one in control. I agreed, but on my terms. I chose the place, a busy, neutral coffee shop downtown. I chose the time, a Saturday afternoon, when I knew I would feel calm and rested. I wasn't going into their territory anymore. They were coming into mine. When I saw them waiting at a small table, they looked different, smaller, older. The arrogant certainty was gone, replaced by a nervous, uncomfortable energy. They didn't know the rules of this new game, and it showed. The conversation was stilted at first. They asked about my job. I asked about their garden. Then my dad cleared his throat. "Iris," he said, looking at the table. We're sorry. We watched the video of Ava's wedding toasts. So many people came up to us asking where you were. It didn't look good. We handled things badly. It wasn't a perfect apology. It was still centered on how things looked to others, on their own embarrassment. But it was a start. It was more than I had ever gotten from them before. My mom just nodded, her eyes watery. "We miss you," she whispered. I took a slow sip of my coffee. I didn't feel the old urge to comfort them, to reassure them that everything was okay. I just let their words hang in the air. "I know," I said finally. I looked at them, not with anger, but with a clear, calm honesty. "I forgive you." A wave of relief washed over their faces. My mom reached her hand across the table, but I didn't take it. "I forgive you," I repeated, my voice gentle but firm. "But I'm done chasing your approval. I'm done being the person you need me to be so that the family can feel normal. The way things were, that's over now. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be a new one, an honest one, with boundaries." They looked confused. Boundaries were a foreign concept in our family. "What does that mean?" my dad asked. "It means I won't be involved in arguments between you and Ava. It means I won't be lending out money anymore. It means you can't make jokes at my expense to make other people feel comfortable. It means you have to see me for who I am, not who you've always wanted me to be." I let that sink in. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a statement of fact. Forgiveness, I had realized, wasn't about wiping the slate clean and pretending nothing had happened. It wasn't an open door for people to walk back through and hurt you all over again. For me, forgiveness was a locked door. It meant I was letting go of the anger and resentment I was carrying, because it was too heavy for me to hold. But I was the one holding the key. I would be the one who decided if and when and how that door ever opened again. It was a peace born of strength, not of surrender. And it was all mine. If you've ever been told to apologize just to keep the peace, when you were never the one who broke it, this story is for you. If you've ever had to make yourself smaller so that someone else could feel big, you're not alone. Drop your city in the comments. Tell me if you've ever walked away instead of begging to be understood. Hit like, subscribe, and remember, sometimes the most powerful revenge is peace and a plane ticket to paradise.